Anna has asked me to speak about everything, a big topic, an everything topic. And I want to thank Anna and thank Track Run for this. And Anna has asked me to speak for 20 minutes. And someone told me 20 minutes is the length of a sermon. So here goes. Here goes. So it's 1 week post-election. Now we're gathered at a very powerful moment. And I think we're in a state of grief and a state of bewilderment. And I've been wanting to write this talk for days, but I put it off and I put it off because my legs felt like lead and my head felt like it was exploding. And I couldn't get through the heaviness, the anger, the despair, and the deep fear for several days until I talked my way through it and began to write. And I think in some way we have to start here with the rawness, acknowledge that's where we are. I also think we can't linger too long in the sadness and the paralysis because our country, our community, our families, our world need us. And I think about two gestures. I think about a protection gesture, kind of an inward gesture, a holding gesture for all the vulnerable people. And I think about a resistant gesture, a hands up resistant gesture. And that somehow for me our work has to be some combination of protecting and resisting to create the kind of world we want to live in, the kind of world that the people at the Pentagon Action in 1980 wanted to live in, and we are working to achieve. It's very easy and a little bit comforting to awfulize. It's a wonderful word that we coined. And we can compare notes on the latest Trumpian triumphs. We can groan at the appointment of right-wing white men to ever greater positions of power. We can freeze over our terror about the Supreme Court and the evisceration of protections on every level. I will spare us that litany because I know you have been engaged in that litany for the past week together. However, it will be impossible to heal, repair, and reconstitute our world from a heart filled with rage, fear, and hatred. Rage looks like this: the fist is closed, through which we can't love, we can't reach out, we can't touch. So we have to deal with the fist that is clenched in front of us, each of us. So I have to keep a lid on my worst case scenario, which can run through my mind all day, as it can for many of you, and turn as best as I can to learn what we need to learn about rebuilding. I know that includes refusing to dehumanize the other, whoever the other means for us, because each of us creates an other out there. And also to hold in my mind the rich history, the Pentagon Action, the Gandhian and King history, the rich tradition of nonviolence through which revolutions have been won and empires have fallen. That's where we have to go. At the same time, for balance with all the news that my mind takes in, I've also been collecting wise words of spiritual teachers that float in on the wings of the internet every day. And that's important for my sustenance. With great courage, the Dalai Lama says simply, be compassionate, work for peace, and never give up. If he can never give up, I can't either, and we can't either. Feminist writer Clarissa Pinkola Estes spins these gorgeous words. I urge you, ask you, gentle you, to please not spend your spirit dry by bewailing these difficult times. Especially do not lose hope. Most particularly because the fact is that we were made for these times. Yes, for years we have been learning, practicing, been in training for, and just waiting to meet on this exact plan of engagement. That should get us going. A Canadian friend noticed that in his country and in much of Europe, citizens agree on policies such as single-payer health care, gun control, and reproductive rights that remain relatively constant over time, allowing them to then move on to other more complex social, political, and economic issues. In the US, because we are so profoundly divided, we never get there. We seem to return to the same issues of health and reproductive care voting rights, racial justice, immigration and gun control over and over. Putting it in, dismantling it, putting it back in. So we never move forward to address other issues because we're so frozen and so stuck. The boulder we push up the mountain on us every 4 or 8 years has now crashed. The boulders at the bottom, we have to lift up from the bottom. Because of that, I think we should take a look more deeply at what's going on. I think we're witnessing a rapid expansion of what Joanna Macy calls the Great Unraveling. She was at the Pentagon Action in 1980. She is, at the age of 8, still teaching and writing and leading workshops. She's a Buddhist scholar and an author and systems thinker. And she offers 3 alternative views about our current moment, which I think will help us. The first one, the industrial growth society is just fine. If we double down on growth and conduct our business as usual, everyone's boat will rise in prosperity. So we pump the oil, extract the resources, feed the rich, exploit the poor, create new enemies so we can go to war, and deny climate change. Business as usual perpetuates the wealth-poverty divide, shrinking privilege into an ever-narrowing cohort. The have and have-not division already is the highest since the Gilded Age of the 19th century, and we know where that led us. And we see this happening now, not just here. This is a worldwide problem. Democratic systems, communist systems, socialist systems. We see Chinese and Russian elite spending the same lavishness as Fifth Avenue Americans. Business as usual allows our resources to go into defending ourselves with absolutely extravagant military budgets. And now, newly militarized police, creating a danger on our streets at home. The tide does not, unfortunately, raise all boats. Most of us sink. Business as usual has no rational approach to addressing the fundamental threats: resource depletion, global population, militarism, rising inequality, and climate change. And because we're interconnected and all phenomena are interconnected, each one of these factors feeds on the other, all of them leading to increasing war and increasing numbers of refugees. So her second view, the Great Unraveling, which is where I think we are now, reflects the unintended consequences of industrialization. We didn't know it was going to go this way, but it has. So systems are beginning to lose their coherence. Institutions are falling apart. We see that. Brexit, what's happening in the US, what's happening in the Mideast. Functions are erratic. The climate behaves unpredictably. Social norms crumble, which we have just witnessed profoundly in the past few months, along with infrastructure. Borders close as compassion weakens and fears multiply. We watch overloaded rafts in the Mediterranean Sea collapsing and people drowning. We watch children dying on the shores of Europe trying to get in. The European Union, a great project of the post-World War II realignment, begins to disintegrate. Liberalism fails to address the multiple crises. We have Brexit, and then we have our election. And here we are. In the Great Unraveling, the cries of pain are heard everywhere. Those were cries of pain from Brexit. Those were cries of pain last week in our election. And there were cries of pain from the ISIS fighters. They're not so different. They're all deprived. They're all lost. They're all feeling hopeless. They're all fearing futureless. So there's some way in which all of this, in my mind, is connected. That there were walls of exclusion, and those walls of exclusion have left people out in the Mideast, in the US, in the UK, and everywhere else. So that's the kind of wall we've already built, a wall of exclusion. Ironically, while those of us on the left worked on including, we also did our own excluding. And I think we have to eat some humble pie when we think about ourselves as members of our society, who we are and who we are not. Combing the electoral data is actually quite interesting. Exit polls tell us that 1 in 5 voters who pulled the lever for Trump do not believe he's qualified to be president. 20% of his voters. Isn't that interesting? Why vote for someone you consider so unqualified? When people so desire change that they will vote for someone who they think will not support them in the end, who's not qualified. Why are they doing that? How greater a cry of desperation could we get than desperation like that? Sadly, their needs will not get met. Sadly, they will be left out. Sadly, they will be disappointed. Neither party is able to meet their needs right now. They have no home in the Democratic Party. They will not have a home for long in the Republican Party. Some people will encourage them to look for scapegoats. The Mexicans, the Muslims, the immigrants, anybody. The women. So we can and must address everyone's needs for economic security and self-respect.